Welcome back to the So You Want to Work in Healthcare podcast. I'm super excited to announce a special guest today. She is a physical therapist and a mind-body movement coach. And you might recognize her from the hit Netflix show, Queer Love Ultimatum, Dr. Xander Boger. Welcome, Xander.
Thank you so much for having me on here, Leigha. I'm super stoked to chat with you today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. You're my first physical therapist on the show. So I think our viewers and listeners are going to get a lot out of this. I did find you from watching the show. I have to admit, I am like a reality TV junkie a little bit. It's like my my favorite little pastime to kind of like let my brain just like escape from the stresses of medicine. So I have to say that's how I found you. But then I started following you on social media and realized like it seems like you're a pretty awesome physical therapist and now coach. So we'll get into that eventually. But what I want to know first is how you decided on healthcare. Like what made you go into the healthcare field to begin with?
Yeah, it's so fun to like think back like when I was in high school and stuff, because I honestly had that like just like cliche vision where I was like, oh, I'm gonna wear scrubs every day to work, and I'm gonna look so like just like be so cool in my scrubs and stuff. And like honestly, that was like really one of the big reasons why I was like I thought that I wanted to do healthcare. But honestly, like I feel like that most of my whole life I've just like really felt like I wanted to be like of service to people. And so my dad was actually diagnosed with like stage 4 cancer when I was a senior in high school. So that kind of like really like opened my eyes a little bit more. So I started going to like some of his appointments and like things like that. And I was like seeing like just like all the jargon that is used and in like the documents. And I felt like that I was confused. My dad was like, everyone was just like confused a lot. And I really just wanted to make sense of like so much of that. But eventually, like, once he started going to like physical therapy appointments, like for his like lymphedema and stuff like that, again, like I just like felt like I had this like awakening where I was like, wow, so like it doesn't have to just be like watching and taking care of people like while they're like in their like sick phase and things like that, but also like working on getting them through that and like bringing them to the other side of it. So I originally thought that I wanted to do nursing, and kind of quickly like transitioned once I figured out like what physical therapy was all about.
I mean, it makes total sense to want to go into medicine because we have somebody who we love who was going through something hard. I find that to be a pretty common story, and it makes sense because you either like have a good experience or maybe they're not so good experience and you want to like help fix that. So totally makes sense. Why'd you pick physical therapy over nursing?
I think that like as I was just like in the very like basic like introductory nursing classes, and I think it was just like a lot of things like where I felt like it was like so much about like medicine. And not that like I mean I took medicine as a kid. I didn't have like a like super like natural growing up or anything, but it just like never felt like something that I really like wanted to do. It just didn't feel like I was given birth control like at a very like early age and didn't understand that. So it just didn't like I didn't feel like that there is like things. I think I really just felt like that it was just covering up the symptoms in a lot of ways.
Right.
So I think that's like the thing that really like changed directions for me, where I was like, I started becoming a lot more like interested in the body, like just like playing some sports, and like when I was growing up, kind of led me like just like a lot more like curious into the body, and just really fascinated about like how it moves and how we can kind of change it and things like that. So that kind of like steered me more into physical therapy.
Cool. Well, I think physical therapy is totally necessary. I work in orthopedic surgery, so, we do hip and knee replacements, especially with knees. It's like such a big difference. Even if a patient just misses a week after their total knee, like there's a huge difference. So I think physical therapy, I'm always recommending it, quick to write the prescription. So I thank you for what you do, because honestly, it's a very important part of medicine, in my opinion.
Definitely.
By the way, is your dad okay? Did he?
He passed in 2012, but yeah.
Oh,
But
I'm sorry.
he like pretty amazing. Like 4 years, like just really fighting through. Like, I mean, he was like also like a big reason like why I've been so interested in the body too, because when I was growing up, his hobby was being a bodybuilder. So like he was working out. He would literally go to chemo and then like come home and work out, and it would just blow my mind. So yeah, just like, but I really think that helps. It did help. It helped his like longevity and even his mindset like throughout that whole time.
For sure. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, but it sounds like he had a good person to help him through it.
Yeah. I feel like I'm definitely getting to like live out his testimony now.
Cool. That's awesome. So a few logistical things. When did you first apply to PT school?
I think I'm pretty sure I applied like my senior year of college.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, and I think that like kind of just like varies. Like I know like some people in my class, applied like after the fact. Like some people come into physical therapy like later in their life or their careers or transition. But yeah, I applied my senior year of college.
Okay. And what was the application process like for you? Did you have to have, because I actually don't really know much about this whole process. So for people listening, like, did you have to have a lot of patient care hours like we do as PAs, or was it more like GPA associated? What did you need to apply?
Yeah, it's not as many hours as you all have to have. I know there's a lot. I can't remember how many I've heard from my PA friends, but it's a lot of hours. But yeah, but
it's like a lot of schools want like 2,500 hours now or more.
That's just so wild. I mean, I get it, super necessary. It's good to like figure out the process, but for physical therapy, it's less than that. I almost want to say it was like 100. It may have been more than that, but
okay.
So like there's a certain amount of like hours. So I would just go like after I was done with my classes at school and go and shadow some physical therapists at around like the town that I was in. So just like kind of gaining those. So just like completing like the four years undergrad. I ended up doing mine in psychology and natural science. A lot of people do like physiology and things like that, exercise science. But so like I really enjoyed like the psychology piece to it. So like having that background and then doing like my hours around town at the clinics.
When, do you mind me asking, when was this?
That was I graduated in 2016. So around 2013. Yeah, 2013 is like when I was doing like my hours, and then I went straight in. So like some people like kind of take a little bit of break. So I went from my undergrad, and then I had like 5 months off or something like that, and then went to PT school.
Are you happy you went straight through?
Yeah, definitely happy. Like I honestly, I also like enjoyed school. Like once I was in physical therapy school too, so like I really thought that it was gonna be like this like gruesome, like terrible thing, like going from school to school. But then I realized like just like the more that you like get into like your passions and like your specialties and things like that, like like it's still a lot, like completing like all the coursework and the tests and things like that. But I was so stoked. Like once I got there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is nothing like undergrad, like where I was just taking a bunch of, classes that weren't necessarily going to be fitting into my career.
Yeah. I mean, I probably had the opposite experience with PA school, because it is like at least the first year of it is just a lot of test taking, but the second year is really cool. Like you're in clinicals and you're like hands-on. So I get that. Did you apply to a lot of schools?
I actually, because my dad was like, that was like his like kind of like last year with us, so it was a very like complicated year. I was just like in this spot like where I had in my like this vision that I was going to apply to all these schools. I wanted to move out of my hometown, like where I was growing up and like where I went to school in North Carolina, and I was like ready to move away from there. So I had this like vision that I was going to apply to all these schools, and I actually ended up only applying to 2, and then just went to like the one that felt like the most right for me.
Well, that makes it simple though.
Yeah.
I actually thought I was going to do the same, and then I think I was just burnt out and was like, I'm going to apply to 3. And so I got in, luckily. But it makes it a lot easier and a lot less expensive to only apply to 2 or 3 schools.
Exactly, because just like the time to like fill out all all the like paperwork, and then like it's usually, I don't remember what it was, like $150 for like each application stuff. So like all of that just like adds up. So I think I was happy that I didn't end up applying to like so many, or like that I didn't feel like that I needed to, because it is just helpful to kind of like narrow those choices down and really feel like you're not like just putting yourself out there for everyone, but it's like, okay, like these are the core schools that I want to go to.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it all worked out in the end. I mean, it sounds like you got out of your hometown because you're in Hawaii now, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Success.
Yeah. Can you talk about your first job and maybe give a little advice on how to obtain like the job that you want coming out of school?
Yeah, absolutely. So I never really thought that I was gonna like be like working in like a specific spot. Like I was just like honestly just like so stoked to like graduate and like get out there and like do my own thing. But I did have like a pretty like strong interest in like neuro and working with people like with like Parkinson's disease or multiple sclerosis and things like that. So I really enjoyed like one of my clinicals in inpatient rehab. And so that's where I ended up getting my first job, is working in inpatient rehab. And I was on like on the stroke floor. So I would work with people, you know, like right after they got out of like the acute care phase, and then they would come and work with us 2 times a day, which was truly just like, I don't know. I feel like inpatient rehab is like such an amazing spot for like a new grad, because one, it's super challenging. But you also have like the support and like a team, depending on like where you're at, to like kind of, you know, like ask questions. Like you're not alone, and you're like really like working through a lot of problems, and just like I think getting a really good understanding of like the healthcare system in general. So I still am, like I always like look back on my first job. I was there for a year and a half, and I just have like so much like gratitude for it, because I feel like I learned so much, and I still just like take like just like so many of like those memories and like think about them now.
I can see how that is helpful. It's kind of like how people tell us to go into like the ED first or do like a hospital job. And it sounds like you get a lot of like medicine as well as the whole physical rehab part of it. So you were there for a year and a half, and then what'd you do after that?
Yeah, then I decided, that's when I was like, okay, like I have to like make the break out of North Carolina. So I need to start I needed to travel. So I feel like since I had like a year and a half like under my belt, I was like, I can go out and do travel physical therapy, because I had like done like some research on it. And it was good. It was like definitely a big learning process, and I did that for like 3.5 years. I did travel physical therapy, so like went to skilled nursing facilities, inpatient rehab, acute care, outpatient clinics. I like kind of just like really like left myself like open to different spots to just kind of keep learning different things.
And was that all over the country?
I did. I did end up doing like one assignment in North Carolina. Did a few in Oregon and in California, and then also in Hawaii, which is how I ended up here.
Oh, okay. Got it. So that makes sense. Travel medicine is still such a hot topic, and probably a little more so during COVID, but I think a lot of people are still really interested in it. I didn't even realize you did that. That's awesome. I think back in the day, I would have loved traveling around. So cool that you got a placement in Hawaii.
I know. Yeah. And it just blows my mind too, to think about that. Like I came there to work just as a traveler, and then left for like a year, and then ended up coming back, and I've been here ever since. So I'm just so grateful
that was in 2020.
Yeah, I came back in 2020.
Oh wow. Okay, cool. So you've been there for a little while.
Yeah.
And you're on the Big Island, right?
Right. Yep. Okay. Big Island.
Oh, I love it there. I feel like it's such an underrated island.
It really is. Like I always like tell people, I'm like, you know, like especially people that already like live in like LA or New York and stuff. I'm like, you don't need to go to Oahu, like, and like literally experience the same thing. Like come to Big Island. Like it's like quiet and peaceful and healing.
Totally. I think I've been there twice when we spent some time there, and it's just like amazing. All the different climates and everything, like so cool.
Yeah.
This podcast episode is sponsored by InCrowd. InCrowd is a healthcare market research organization focused on collecting feedback from diverse medical professionals on a wide range of healthcare topics through brief microsurveys. They partner with leading names in the life sciences industry and pair them with healthcare professionals who are instrumental in providing expert feedback to research. On average, most microsurveys take less than 10 minutes to complete. All of their microsurveys and qualitative interviews are paid, and you can even receive partial compensation if you screen out. Take part in as many or as few surveys as you'd like when your schedule allows. Participate with your mobile phone, computer, or tablet when it is convenient for you. Research is anonymous and all information is protected by their data privacy compliance. I just took a survey yesterday. It took me about 5 minutes and I made $40. That's better pay than my job as a PA. Join InCrowd today by clicking on the link I'll share in this episode's show notes and earn money sharing your medical expertise. InCrowd is a brand within the Apollo Intelligence family of companies. So your travel job took you to Hawaii. So lucky. I'm sure that there's going to be people signing up for travel jobs after they hear that. What exactly were you doing in Hawaii before you then transitioned to your coaching business?
So I was working at the clinic, the outpatient clinic that I started with when I was a traveler. I had like lots of different like hats like while I was there. It was very much like in its like starting phase when I got there as a traveler, which is typical for also out there. Whoever is interested in travel therapy, it is amazing. But like these are the kind of spots that you usually get into is like typically the places that are like newer or like kind of like starting up, or maybe people that it's kind of also sometimes places that most people don't really want a job at, which is why they need help.
Okay. Yeah.
But so like this place was definitely like starting up, and it was really cool. Like it was cool to like be able to like watch it grow and like watch it just like change and evolve so much. But it was I was at a chronic pain clinic working like outpatient. So I really like value like that work, and I am so grateful for the experience. I think it really like plays a big part into like what I'm doing now. Let's see, I left my job. I started my own thing in August and then left my job this past October of 2023. So yeah, because it just felt like that it was time to make another change, and start doing something like some things just like a little bit like differently and like a little bit more like my own style.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that then. So it says, on your website and everything, mind body movement coach. So let's talk about like what that means to you. I'm assuming your degree in psych plays a big part in that too. Like I was thinking before when you said that, like just in physical therapy in general, it must be so helpful to have a psychology background.
Yeah, I feel like it's been helpful. And then even just like some of my own things, which sometimes like it was some of my stuff was like displayed like on the reality show on the Ultimatum. But
Yeah.
even just like working through things like that, like that's like where I really like to almost like combine like the mental pain with the physical pain, because they are so hand in hand. Like they don't go without the other one. And that's really like what I learned so much, working so many years in a clinic that treated primarily chronic pain, and just so much psychological and like mental like distress, which was really causing them to not be able to like push past the physical limitations that they were having. So yeah, so like, I think that played like a really big role into it. But besides the psychology background, I think like I was saying, like just a lot of my own like things that I do like with like my mindfulness and breath work and like things like that, and like seeing how when I started using that probably like 2 years ago, while I was working in my outpatient clinic, and seeing like, wow, okay, so like that is actually the ticket. That's how you kind of tap into someone's like nervous system and like where they're like starting to connect with themselves a little bit more, and even being able to feel different things, because I think that's the other thing that we go through, like when we have like an injury or chronic pain or something like that, like our body starts to become numb to it. So it's kind of just like listening, walking, giving people like the space to be able to explore that a little bit more and to try and like get back in like touch with themselves.
It's so important, the mind body connection. And I see it so much in my practice where, you know, not having the right mindset after surgery definitely, I think, plays a role in how the patient does. So I really wish, well, I do think it's happening, but I wish that medicine would incorporate like a more of a mental health aspect in conjunction with the physical stuff. So I really actually love what you're doing. What pushed you to get out of, you know, a more traditional PT role and start this business?
I think it's like exactly like what you were saying about like having more of like mental health piece to it. Like when I was like making like the decision, I knew like, okay, like I don't have to like kind of like quit the healthcare system altogether. Like that doesn't have to be like the next jump. Like I could have done my cash based PT and still like accepted insurance and like done my own thing. Cause that's kind of just like where I felt like that I was like ready for, like I wanted more growth, and I didn't really feel like the place that I was at was growing at the pace that I wanted to grow.
Yeah.
And but I still felt so like confined and restricted, like under like the physical therapy, like the wheelhouse, like what all like that was like offered. And I didn't feel like that I was like able to like get past the point, like where I really wanted to just like have people to be able to like to ask me like more questions, and like where it doesn't feel so much like here's your exercises that you're going to do. Here's your home exercise program. Go home and do that. And then come back and let me know how it goes. But like, I really wanted it to be like more of a connection.
Right.
So that's like kind of where I wanted to do more of the coaching aspect, and where it became more of a conversation, and started giving people like more independence and autonomy, like in their own care, instead of just having like a physical therapist or like a practitioner be like, these are the things that you need to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I keep saying it's so important, but it's like, it really is. I really wish more people, or I really wish the healthcare system would kind of like have people like you who's kind of involved in the normal care. And I'm just thinking surgery, but it could be for anything, any trauma, any surgery, any like any chronic illness, anything. So what I am curious about, and I think what people will really appreciate, is if you could like run us through a typical day at your outpatient clinic, how you were working, and compared to like your typical day now. Because I do think a lot of people, including myself as well, I'm really interested in how I could potentially branch off on my own one day. How would you like, how does your lifestyle differ? Because I think lifestyle is probably a big reason why a lot of people kind of like want to get out of traditional clinical medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great question. So when I was working in an outpatient clinic, which was definitely working for me for many years, it was, I would usually, I worked like 7 to 4. So I would go in, a little bit early, kind of like prep over like who I was going to see that day. My clinic actually was well controlled, I would say. Like, so like we usually would not try to double. So I would have like one patient every hour, sometimes 2, depending on like what, if I had some extra stuff going on. But so typically I just like see like one patient per hour. But it's still like the insurance like restrictions that I think that I was like really feeling. So in between like seeing like the patients, like there's like calling insurances. Some clinics have like more like front office staff that can kind of help with some of those things, but if it's a smaller clinic, like I'm doing like a lot of like the insurance calls, trying to get like authorizations for my patients, doing like the normal like documentation, just making sure that I have like things like set. I also worked with a lot of like work comp patients, so like after people got like a work injury, so those cases tend to be a little bit more complicated, just because again, like there's just like more people involved and more people to try and communicate with.
So many forms.
So many forms, so many people just like,
hey,
can this person continue physical therapy? Like, just like asking, it's just like the continuous like asking. It's just like so much extra stuff, which is all necessary, like to a lot of the degree, because it's the healthcare system that we're working in.
Right.
And then so this kind of also like pieces it into like how I also transitioned, where I was also seeing just so much of people like being like let go by their insurances or co-pays, or they weren't able to attend a physical therapy appointment because their job where they got hurt wasn't allowing them to have like the hours and the time to go to an hour-long physical therapy appointment, So
yeah.
and it's just like I could never say that I didn't feel like that I could say like you need to be coming to physical therapy. Forget the money that I know you need to like feed your children. So just like there's just like so many things that I think are under people's umbrella for like why they aren't getting better and improving and like recovering and stuff. And I wanted to be able to take that all into consideration without being like, oh, sorry, like too bad. So starting like my coaching business now, I don't do I don't do all those other things, like the calls that I'm making or the correspondences that I'm having is generally just like with my clients and the people that I'm working with virtually elsewhere, like in Canada, California, just like all around. And so like I'm just like kind of corresponding with them and working with just some of their like daily questions, prepping their like programs for the week. So instead of like a home exercise program, like I'm giving like everyone that I'm working with gets 3 to 4 exercises per week. So creating those like individual programs, making like just like educational content, trying to like making my systems and processes for my business a little bit like smoother and more efficient so that I can just be like holding more space for more clients, and then also to like give back to like myself too. Like I've been able to just do like I think all the things that like I always like wanted to do like after work or before work that I was generally like too just like bogged down for. Like I don't feel as much of that anymore. Like I feel like I have a lot more like time and energy. Like this morning I went swimming. I went to the gym before. Like there just feels like
Nice.
more like space and energy to like do the things that I really like, love while I'm still getting to help. If I feel like I'm helping more people, because it's not just like I'm helping 8 people in that day. Like I'm getting like a bigger span.
Right. I love that you have more time, or when the time that you do have, you're feeling like you can use it better. I think that's all of our goals eventually. I will say though, it kind of sucks that the healthcare system like kind of forces us out of it sometimes, because if we didn't have to do all of this paperwork and jump through these like hoops and spend all this time getting authorization, I feel like we could treat our patients so much better. So I commend you for taking the leap and doing your own thing, because I know that's hard. I also wish that the healthcare system would fix this issue so we could all feel really good after work and go do the things we want to do.
Exactly. I don't even have like an inkling of an idea of like how to even like fix it. It's just like such a big structure and such a like deep rooted system.
Yeah.
But I do think it's like cool for like, people that are kind of like seeking that, and like the more of us that are like getting out and like doing more of this kind of thing, even though it may be a little bit more expensive sometimes, like it's like getting you back to doing like the things that you want to do.
Yeah, and hopefully it's more of a preventive medicine, hopefully not as many people will have to end up in the hospital and at outpatient clinics or inpatient clinics. So, yeah. I guess you kind of went over this already, but do you have like a main goal with your coaching business? Is it to, just provide people with preventive care? Is it to like overall give them a better lifestyle? Like what is like, I hate saying what's your passion, it's so cliche, but what are you passionate about with this business?
The thing that has been coming up so much for me recently is just like really feeling like still the weight honestly of the pandemic and like just like years worth of like grinding. Like people are just like so much grind, so much hustle, and so much of this like high energy. And then when that gets kind of like translated over into like rehab and exercises sometimes, unless you're like an actual if you're in the NFL and like that's like your job is to be doing those kind of things. But in general, like I really like am trying to like find like exercises and ways to bring people like back to themselves. Like that feels like my biggest like passion is to be able to like bring people back to themselves, which I really strongly just believe that that's like the way to do that is like through breath and through the body, and like by learning movements and like learning how to kind of like how to heal yourself from like within.
I love that. And in the middle of all of this, like hustling and grinding what was that? I guess pandemic was 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
You found yourself on a Netflix show, Ultimatum Queer Love. So tell me how does this happen? How does one find themselves on a show like this? I loved it, by the way. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was an awesome show.
I think that the way that I found myself on that show is having a partner that wanted to be on the screen and like be an actress, which is great. But that's how we like originally like got on. Like I think that she like wanted to have like some airtime and like some like showtime, but like it just ended up being so much more than that, and like way more than either of us had an idea of like what we were getting ourselves into, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like it is wild to like think about like just how much that like, because like I was just like I was like doing like physical therapy, and like it's not like I was like some people like ask like if I was doing it for like the money. I'm like, we didn't really get paid that much. Like I would have been paid more if I would have just stayed working as a physical therapist.
Right. Let's talk about timeline. So were you already thinking about the coaching business before the show, or did maybe like the putting yourself out there for people to see and then gaining, I'm sure, a big following from that? I will say I would probably go as so far to say as you were probably like the most liked person on that show. So I'm sure you got a nice following from it. Like, did that kind of also push you to like give you the confidence to start your own business?
Absolutely. I was like feeling a lot of like internalness, like where I was like before the show, I was like which is probably also like what led me to like kind of agree with it, because I was like very much in this like state of wanting and seeking, and I wasn't doing what I like wanted to do, which didn't make sense to me at the same time. So I was like, I know I love physical therapy and I love movement and body and things like that, but there's just like something in me that just like was not clicking. So after the show and being there for like that long of a time, so we were there for almost 3 months, and just so much happened within that. Like, as you can imagine, like just like lots of like comfort zones where like I was just like way outside of them, and also just like I learned so much more about myself and throughout that whole process, and I did gain a lot of like confidence like in myself, and like a lot more like clarity and understanding for like what I wanted. But yeah, so like once the show was starting to come out, and having like no idea how like what I was going to be perceived as, or like how this was going to like affect me being a physical therapist. Like I didn't know if like, because I was still like, I felt like I was like very like, I need to be a professional like kind of thing. Then like then all my stuff's just like wide open on TV. So
yeah.
So it just like that part like changed it a lot. But yeah, I definitely like gained a lot of confidence and like just like understanding like in myself to know that I was ready for something more. And I think that this show did kind of help push me into seeing that, which was great.
Yeah, that was my next question, was going to be like, what was the best thing you learned from that experience? Would it be gaining confidence?
Yeah, I think just like my like little like self-love like statement by like choosing myself like at the end and everything was a lot more like impactful to me. And even just like watching it back and like watching myself go through that, I think that was really the thing that was like, wow, like there's just so much more that like I can be doing for myself and like giving to myself, which again is like now like what I feel like that I like work so much with my clients on. So I'm like trying to give them like that same bit of like joy and like understanding like within themselves too.
That's super powerful. It's like self-worth basically, and it's really cool that you got that out of what could have been like a rough experience. I don't know. I would have had probably so much anxiety in that time between like the show ending and it airing. Like,
oh, I did.
I don't know how you did it, but honestly, I think you did all the right things. So you probably already talked about this as well, but what would you say is your favorite part about your choice to be a physical therapist, being a physical therapist, and what do you hate about it? And I feel like you're gonna, we already talked about the challenges of like paperwork and prior authorizations and all that. But yeah, what are your answers for those?
My favorite thing about being a physical therapist is just knowing for myself and for others, like it just feels like, I was actually thinking about this yesterday, like, it feels like to me like the highest wealth to be able to feel like that I know how to rehab myself and others. Like I love that, like I actually had like 3 friends come over last week that got hurt from sports injuries and different things, and it is like so great, and like also like such like my love language to be able to feel like that I can like give that to someone and feel like that I have like knowledge. So that's one of my favorite things about it for sure.
So their superpower.
Yeah, it feels like a superpower.
Yeah, I feel special when people ask me to like diagnose them with things, and I'm right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, here's all my symptoms. Like, what do you like? Can you figure that out? I'm like, sure, I'll figure it out.
I love it.
Yeah, that's definitely a good part about it. Just like healthcare in general. And then my least favorite, I'm thinking about even just like, because this is like, it's new for me to be like asking people for money and things like that, like as a physical therapist, and even like people that are like cash-based physical therapists can kind of like probably like relate to, but and even as like with insurance and stuff, people's copays, like I wish that it could be more affordable and things like that. But I think that's the thing too, is like I don't love that. Like I wish that it could be like more of like a trade of things, but and then documentation back when I was a physical therapist was not fun either, just like submitting all the paperwork and things. But I actually kind of enjoy the way that I document now, and feeling that I'm just like seeing areas and just like able to like make things click a little bit more for like the progress for my clients and stuff, without feeling that I just needed to verify it to the insurance. Like it's more for myself.
Right. So I guess the last thing is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to a student or somebody thinking about becoming a physical therapist and then maybe taking the chance, or let's just say like making the switch to a more private role, like a coaching business?
I definitely recommend, and this is just like something that I feel like that I've always come back to even as I started my own business, is just really staying curious. In PT school, when there's so much going on, so many like tests, and like there's all these like comparison like with your classmates and stuff, but like all of that stuff just like it doesn't matter like at all. It's like it's really just like the more like that you can like kind of like just like come back to like what your true like meaning, like what your passion is, and like staying curious with it is like really just like my ultimate like wish for so many people, as people start to becoming clinicians and like getting out and working as a physical therapist for their first time. Like there's still going to be so much that we don't know, and it's okay. Like it's okay, because we're all human and we're all kind of just like figuring this out together too. And this is like now also like what I tell myself, I guess I'm still like growing my business and everything now, is for me also to just like stay curious within this process too, because there's no like end outcome goal kind of thing. Like it's just, we're just like moving through it and finding different people to like help us out, other mentors or teachers and things like that. But yeah, stay curious.
Such a great answer. Stay curious. So good, because it's so true. Like I'm 10 years into my job now, and I find myself sometimes just getting like going through the motions, and kind of looking for something else. But on those days where you get like a cool case or you're trying to figure out something new, it really just like reinvigorates you. So I definitely agree with that piece of advice. Stay curious. And also like there's no one who knows everything. We're all kind of like learning as we go, and it's okay not to know. So all the things you said are wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I think this has been really great. I really thank you for doing this.
I've had so much fun chatting with you.
Oh, yeah, you too. I know. This has been great. Thank you so much. Everyone go follow Xander on Instagram. Her handle is xander.ology. Love that name, by the way. And on YouTube, your Move with Xan, as well as your website is movewithxan.com, right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thanks again for watching, listening. Don't forget to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. And if you could, please leave me a 5-star review wherever you're listening or watching. And I will see you guys in about 2 weeks. This is the So You Want to Work in Healthcare podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest releases.